So, in 30 seconds, what is Nuuka all about?
Well, you can hear this, Ryan? Yep. So we make buildings smart. So what we do is we take all the information that is existing in today's modern buildings, we analyze that, and we help the building owners or the building users to be much more effective in their building usage, much more environmentally friendly, more sustainable, more energy efficient, by also providing them a good indoor air quality.
Okay.
So we are the brains of the building.
You are the brains of the building. When it comes to getting your software platform into these buildings, who is it you need to convince inside the building that Nuuka is the service that they need?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, because we basically have two main segments. So the other one is the building owner, who typically has a portfolio of several or tens of even hundreds of buildings, and want to make sure that all his or her buildings are performing on an optimal level, as environmentally friendly, as eco-efficiently as possible. Then on the other hand, we also want to talk to the users of the building. So think about an office building, for example. You want to know that there's a good indoor air in that office building, that you spend 8 hours a day. We talk a lot with the grocery store owners. So think about a supermarket, where you want to make sure that your cooling devices are operating as efficiently as possible. But also you want to make sure that if you have a big freezer full of Christmas turkeys, for example, that they don't melt down because there's a malfunction in a thermostat or something like that.
Yeah, let's not melt down the turkeys.
Yeah, exactly. Or pigs in Finland.
Or pigs, yeah. Whatever it is you fancy. Or any vegans in the audience, whatever you want to put in the freezer too. So how about we try and go to an audience question right now? Does anyone have a question for Mikko on the spot about Nuuka and their quest for putting brains in buildings? Okay, we'll come back to the audience in a second. How big do you think this market is for Nuuka?
Well, we've estimated that in the European Union area alone, there's roughly 20 million buildings that are actively managed, so 20 million commercial buildings. Out of those 20 million buildings, roughly half, so let's say 10 million, are also part of a portfolio. So it's a part of an owner that has more than one building, and that would be our target market. So if you then look at 10 million buildings, and if we get one of them, we typically invoice something around 5,000 a year or something like that. So it's a big number. It's a big enough number for us.
Fantastic. So, final question I have before going back to the audience, if they would like to ask any questions, is what do you need right now to make Nuuka a world-dominating player in the building industry?
Well, thanks for asking that, because it's a very simple answer to that. We need money.
No way.
We just put out a release actually today that we are trying to go for an IPO next year in First North Stockholm. Why we do that is that we want to raise capital to go abroad and really strengthen our sales. We think we have a proven business case. We have roughly 750 buildings under management today. We have great references. You can talk to our references. They really like our solutions, that they think we can bring value to these customers. What we need is more salespeople, more internationally capable salespeople who can really spread the story and get this business on the next level.
Going for growth.
Yeah,
let's do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Final chance for a question. Mikko's on a mission. Do we have anyone who'd like to throw something at Mikko? Okay, we've got two. So how about we start with... Okay, we'll start with this person over here.
Sorry, I'm going to go around.
Camille's going to jump over some tables, so everybody hold your drinks. And speak right into the microphone, okay?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. What about the competition?
Yeah, so I always say that we have 3 different types of competition. The biggest competition probably comes from the big building automation providers, so the Siemens, the Honeywells, the Fidelix of the world, whose main purpose is to sell the hardware, and then they give the software for free. So they sell your hardware for energy metering, for example, and then they give you a software to analyze that energy meter data. What we then say, obviously, is that first of all, it's a sub-optimizing of things in buildings. You typically don't want to only optimize energy performance, because that might then lead into humidity in the indoor air or mold issues and stuff like that. And by the way, their main business is to sell you the hardware. So do you want to buy the software from somebody and monitor how the hardware is working from the same company? So that would be my question to that. The second type of competition typically comes from these point solution providers. So companies who only do indoor air, or who only do energy management, or who only do security protocols inside the buildings. For that, we say that you need to consolidate all the building big data into one and look at the building as a whole, so that you can actually optimize the total performance. And then the last, the third category of competition typically comes from these what we call remote management operators. So companies, big maintenance companies here in Finland, for example, ISS, Caverion, LT, and these companies like that, who remotely manage your building. So what they do is that they put building automation engineers in a cellar somewhere, look at 20 different types of screens of how my office building in this and this location is performing, and optimize it from remotely. And to them we say that, why do you look at all those 20 different user interfaces, 20 different screens, when you could look at one, which would be Nuuka, that would then automate the alarming functions. If there is a red dot somewhere, if there's a problem somewhere, you know it immediately because we send you the automatic alarm for that. So those three categories, plenty of companies, there's always a lot of competition, but I think we have a unique position in analyzing the big building data, the big data from buildings, rather than collecting the data and reporting that, but actually analyzing and giving you a useful piece of information.
That sounded like a good answer to me. This gentleman right here, did you have a question as well?
Yes, how easy it is to copy you.
So that was a question about how easy... here we go.
How easy is it to copy you?
Not that easy, to put it in a short answer. So what we do is that we have a lot of building automation. So the founders of the company are building automation experts. So what they have done their whole life is to look at building automation systems and how the buildings could be performed better. Now they came from that aspects, and then they built a technology to take all that information from this different building automation system, put it in an analytics tool, and analyze the information and provide that information then to the right people at the right time. So we have an expertise of understanding how the building should be performing, and then we build technology on top of that. So it's not only the technology, it's also the know-how that we have in the company that we think is a real killer application.
Great. Thank you so much for coming here tonight, Mikko.
Thank you.
Yeah, and talk to Mikko during any of the breaks if you want to know more about Nuuka. Thank you. Take it away, band.